The lights have dimmed to their night setting. In this softer glow, familiar spaces take on new weight, new texture, new purpose. Tonight we witness the quiet labor of the engineering bay of an Imperial Star Destroyer. Settle into the stillness. Let your bed hold you softly. Let your thoughts grow quiet and distant. Let the last of your effort melt away. This is canon and calm. Let us begin. Deep within the belly of the Star Destroyer, the quiet hours of the watch carry a weight of their own, pressing down with the silence of 1,000 miles of dura steel. Here, far beneath the bustling command bridge and the polished halls of the officer quarters, the immense scale of the ship is felt not in the eyes, but in the very marrow of your bones. It is a place of perpetual shadow, where the light is a rare commodity, and the environment is shaped by the relentless demands of the great engines. You stand on a narrow catwalk, your gloved hands resting on a cold railing, looking out over a landscape of machinery that seems to stretch on into infinity. The steady pulse of the primary ion engines creates a constant tremor, a physical presence that never truly leaves your side, vibrating through the deck plates and up through the soles of your boots. It is a low, vibrating note, a measure of the ship's life that hums in a cadence only those who work these decks can truly understand. Every bolt and every rivet seems to vibrate in sympathy with that deep, resonant tone, creating a symphony of industrial labor that serves as the backdrop to your evening. There is a strange comfort in this noise, a reminder that the vessel is alive, breathing, and moving through the measureless void of the stars. In this corner of the engineering bay, the atmosphere is thin and metallic, filtered through layers of industrial haze and the faint blue glow of the containment fields. Every surface you touch is either freezing to the exterior chill of space or radiating a fierce artificial warmth from the nearby power converters. You can smell the sharp tang of ozone, the scent of high-voltage electricity dancing across the terminals, mixed with the faint, oily aroma of hydraulic fluid. It is a sterile yet lived-in scent, the olfactory fingerprint of a machine that has been running without pause for many standard months. You move slowly, your boots making a hollow, metallic clack against the grates of the catwalk, each step echoing into the shadows below. There is no hurry here, only the meticulous, unending requirement of maintenance in a vessel that demands total devotion from its crew. Your task for this hour is simple, a routine check of the secondary cooling loops, yet it requires a focus that blocks out the rest of the galaxy. You are a single gear in a machine of impossible complexity, a witness to the quiet labor that keeps the Empire's might afloat in the murk. To your left, a massive conduit hums with the energy of 1,000 lightning bolts, contained within thick, lead-lined shielding that feels warm to the touch. The magnetic field surrounding the pipe is so strong that the fine hairs on your arms stir, reaching toward the source of the power like iron filings to a magnet. It is a dangerous, beautiful force, the lifeblood of the Star Destroyer, flowing from the reactor core to the hungry maws of the thrusters. You watch the way the dust motes dance in the faint light near the conduit, caught in the invisible eddies of the magnetic pull. A small leak of hydraulic fluid has pooled near a junction box, reflecting the flickering amber of a warning light with a slow, hypnotic persistence. It is a minor thing, a task that will eventually require a repair team. But for now, you simply watch the way the liquid shimmers like liquid obsidian. The puddle is perfectly still, undisturbed by the vibrations of the ship, a dark mirror reflecting the complex geometry of the ceiling above. You note the location on your datapad. the stylus making a soft scratching noise against the screen, a tiny sound in the sprawling silence of the bay. The ambient warmth of the reactor core drifts up from the lower levels, a thick, pressing heat that makes the recycled oxygen feel laden and slow. It is a warmth that carries the weight of suns, the byproduct of the massive fusion reactions that power the ship's primary systems. You adjust the collar of your flight suit, feeling the sweat prickle at the back of your neck, a reminder of the raw power that is being harnessed just a few hundred meters away. This is the heart of the beast, the place where the laws of physics are bent to the will of the Imperial Navy. High above, the shadows of rotating cooling fans dance across the ceiling, their slow, deliberate movement casting long, shifting bars of shade across the workstations. The blades are 30 feet across, turning with a grace that belies their weighted purpose, pushing the heat away from the sensitive isolinear circuitry. The pattern of the shadows is predictable, a cycle that you have watched for hours, yet it never fails to mesmerize. It is a visual tempo, a slow-motion dance of light and shadow that defines the visual landscape of the engineering decks during the late watch. You reach out a hand to touch a primary pressure gauge, its needle quivering just below the red line with a stubborn, mechanical defiance. It has been this way for 3 days, a minor anomaly that the senior engineers have deemed acceptable, yet you find yourself checking it every time you pass. The glass of the gauge is slightly cracked, a small web of lines that distorts the numbers beneath, a testament to the age and use of this particular sector. You tap the glass gently, watching the needle jump and then return to its previous position, a small, reliable constant in your routine. There is a certain peace in the mechanical certainty of this place, a logic that the chaotic universe outside the hull cannot hope to provide. Within these walls, every bolt, every wire, and every circuit has a designation, a function, and a place in the grand, calculated design of the Empire. It is an environment of order where problems are solved with a wrench and a steady hand, rather than the messy complexities of politics or war. You find yourself leaning into the structure of it, the predictable nature of the machinery providing a sanctuary from the uncertainties of the wider galaxy. A mouse droid chirps quietly as it scuttles past your feet, its internal sensors navigating the labyrinth of cables and pipes with a practiced, automated ease. It is a small, busy creature, oblivious to the measureless void of space that lies just beyond the thick, reinforced hull plating of the bay. You watch its red sensor eye blink as it pauses to scan a junction box, its tiny wheels whirring softly against the durasteel floor. It is a lonely little machine, much like yourself, performing its duties in the dimness, without the need for recognition or praise. You pause by a thick, reinforced viewport, though there is little to see but the faint, shimmering veil of the ship's own energy shield. Somewhere out there, stars are burning in the distance, but in here, the only light that matters is the steady green glow of the status monitors. The shield creates a slight distortion, a ripple in the stars that makes them look like jewels seen through the surface of a moving stream. It is a reminder of the barrier between the fragile life inside the ship and the cold, unforgiving vacuum that waits outside the hull. The work is repetitive, a series of checks and adjustments that ensure the heart of the ship continues to beat without a single missed pulse. You tighten a loose fitting with a weighted hydrospanner, the metal-on-metal screech echoing briefly before being swallowed by the ambient murmur of the engineering bay. The resistance of the bolt is satisfying, a physical task that requires strength and precision, grounding you in the reality of your labor. You can feel the grease on your gloves, the texture of the tool, and the strain in your muscles as you finish the turn. In the distance, the faint clank of a maintenance droid's arm suggests that you are not entirely alone in this sector, though the ship is so large that you might not see another soul for hours. The distance is so great that the noise feels like a memory, a ghost of activity in the quiet hours of the night shift. You listen for it again, but the tone is lost in the hum of the ventilation, leaving you once more in your own private landscape of pipes and panels. It is a solitary existence, but one that carries a quiet dignity, a sense of being essential to the whole. Steam hisses from a relief valve, a sudden sharp exhale that startles a group of sleeping shadows in the corner of the maintenance pit. The white mist curls around your legs, cool and damp, before dissipating into the recycled breeze of the ventilation system. It leaves a fine dew on the metal surfaces, a temporary moisture that the dry atmosphere of the ship quickly begins to evaporate. You watch the mist vanish, thinking of how easily a person could be lost in the scale of this setting. A single breath in a machine that spans miles. You think of the millions of individual parts that make up this vessel, each one forged in the foundries of Kuat or the orbital shipyards of Siena. It is a staggering thought. The sheer volume of material and man-hours required to project the Emperor's will across the distant stars. Every plate of armor and every strand of fiber-optic cable has been placed with a purpose, a testament to the industrial might of 1,000 worlds. You are standing in the middle of a monument to that power, a steel planet that carries its own gravity and its own destiny. A data pad rests on a nearby workbench, its screen showing a scrolling list of fuel consumption rates for the forward thruster banks in the third quadrant. The numbers are astronomical, representing a flow of energy that could power a whole city for a decade. Yet here it is just another line in a report. You scroll through the data, your eyes tracking the steady flow of Tabana gas through the injectors, looking for any sign of a fluctuation. Everything is within parameters, a perfect line of green text that confirms the stability of the ship's primary systems. You wipe a smudge of grease from the screen with your thumb, the texture of the glass smooth and cold against your skin. This is your small corner of the machine, a territory of pipes and panels that you have come to know better than the layout of your own crew quarters. You know which valves are prone to sticking and which monitors have a tendency to flicker when the ship enters hyperspace. It is a familiar, comfortable knowledge, the kind that only comes from spending years in the service of the same massive, unfeeling engine. The floor beneath you groans slightly as the ship makes a minor course correction, the massive gyro stabilizers countering the shift in momentum with a series of deep metallic thuds. It is a slow, tilting sensation, like the breathing of a great beast as it turns in its sleep, adjusting its position in the half-light. You steady yourself against a bulkhead, feeling the power of the engines as they push against the vacuum of space. The ship is a universe unto itself, a self-contained ecosystem that moves through the void with a purpose that is both terrifying and magnificent. You lean against a support pillar, feeling the warmth of the machinery through the fabric of your flight suit, and close your eyes for a brief moment. The shift is only just beginning, and the hours ahead stretch out like the long, dimly lit corridors of the lower decks, quiet and full of mechanical mystery. There is much to be done, many more checks to complete, and many more pipes to inspect. But for now, you simply exist in the hum. The shift continues. The path ahead, leading deeper into the heart of the primary reactor core. You step onto the primary catwalk, where the metal floor plates ring under your boots with a hollow metallic chime. Below you, the abyss of the reactor shaft plunges into a sapphire-colored haze where the core pulses with a steady electric life. It is the heart of the Star Destroyer, a miniature star captured within a cage of magnetic fields and reinforced durasteel. The ambient warmth increases here, a dry heat that tastes of ionized particles and old, scorched copper. You adjust the collar of your uniform, feeling the prickle of static electricity against the fine hairs on your arms. Every breath is filtered through the ship's massive life support systems, carrying the faint, metallic tang of the recycled atmosphere. To your left, a series of massive magnetic coils hum with a low, vibrating note that you feel in your marrow. These coils are the only thing standing between the crew and the raw, unbridled energy of the hypermatter reaction. You place a gloved hand on the safety railing, feeling the subtle tremor of the ship's power flowing through the structure. The light in this chamber is different from the rest of the ship, a flickering spectral blue that casts long, distorted shadows across the bulkheads. It is a cold light that provides no comfort, illuminating the complexity of the pipes and conduits that snake along the walls. You move forward, your pace measured and careful, mindful of the sheer drop into the glowing depths below. A small maintenance droid scuttles past your feet, its metallic chirps lost in the constant, thrumming roar of the cooling fans. It is a lonely little machine, tasked with cleaning the dust from the sensors in this high radiation zone. You watch it for a moment, its red optical sensor blinking as it disappears into a narrow access tunnel. You reach the first monitoring station, a console embedded into a thick pillar of reinforced plastoid. The screen is a grid of amber lines and flickering icons, showing the status of the primary cooling loop. You tap a few keys, the soft clicks of the mechanical buttons providing a sharp contrast to the ambient murmur of the reactor. The pressure in the third auxiliary line is slightly higher than usual, a minor deviation that would go unnoticed by the automated systems. You make a mental note to check the bypass valve on the lower level once you finish your rounds here. It is these small details, these tiny imperfections, that keep you focused during the long, quiet hours of the shift. This vessel is a city of steel, housing 37,000 souls, yet here in the engineering bay you feel entirely alone. The silence is not an absence of noise, but a presence of its own, a thick mechanical blanket that wraps around you. You look out over the immense chamber, watching the way the blue light reflects off the polished surfaces of the machinery. The hypermatter reactor is a marvel of engineering, a sun-crushing engine that propels this mountain of metal through the stars. You think of the millions of calculations required to maintain the stability of the reaction, performed by the ship's main computer in less than a microsecond. Yet even with all that processing power, the machine still requires the human touch, the intuition of a technician who knows when a valve is about to stick. You move to the edge of the catwalk, looking up toward the ceiling where the massive ion injectors are housed. They are silent now, their enormous muzzles dark and cold as the ship drifts through the void on its current heading. When they fire, the entire ship shudders with a force that can be felt in every deck, a push that moves 400 million tons of durasteel. A faint smell of ozone drifts through the atmosphere, a sign that the shielding on one of the power couplings might be thinning. You pull a handheld scanner from your belt, the device's screen glowing with a soft green light as it analyzes the surrounding area. The readings are within acceptable limits, but the scent persists, a ghostly reminder of the raw power contained just a few meters away. You continue your walk, the path narrowing as you enter the manifold room where the primary power lines branch out to the rest of the ship. The walls here are lined with thick, insulated cables, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a small moon. They are bundled together in massive clamps, humming with a frequency that makes the very deck plates beneath your feet shiver. You find a small leak in a secondary coolant line, a tiny hiss of pressurized gas that creates a frost-covered patch on the pipe. It is a simple fix, one that requires only a few turns of a magnetic wrench to seal the breach. You work slowly, your movements deliberate and precise, enjoying the physical sensation of the tool as it bites into the metal. The frost begins to melt as soon as the leak is stopped, the droplets of water trickling down the side of the pipe like tears. You wipe them away with a rag, the fabric soaking up the cold moisture before it can drip onto the sensitive electronics below. It is a small victory, a minor repair in a world of infinite maintenance, but it brings a sense of satisfaction to the evening. Your boots clatter against a set of stairs as you descend toward the lower observation deck, the lighting becoming dimmer and more recessed. The walls are thicker here, designed to withstand the intense pressure of the reactor's core should the magnetic containment ever fail. You pass a row of emergency environmental suits, their white helmets staring out from behind glass panels like eyeless sentinels. On the lower deck, the vibration of the engines is more pronounced, a deep, pulsing note that seems to synchronize with your own heartbeat. You lean against a viewport, looking out into the dark expanse of the reactor's interior, where the blue glow is most intense. It is a beautiful, terrifying sight, a whirlpool of energy that looks like a captured nebula swirling in a cage. You think of the worlds this ship has visited, the systems it has patrolled, and the battles it has witnessed from a distance. To the people on the planets below, this ship is a shadow in the sky, a symbol of an empire that spans the galaxy. To you, it is a collection of parts, a complex puzzle of pipes and wires that requires constant attention to keep from falling apart. The shift moves into its middle hours, the time when the mind begins to wander and the shadows seem to lengthen in the corners of the room. You check your chronometer, the glowing digits showing that you have been on duty for 6 hours, with 6 more yet to go. The path ahead leads toward the ion engine manifolds, where the heat will be even more intense and the noise even louder. You take a final look at the reactor core, its steady pulse a constant in an ever-changing universe. The ship is a monument to order, a testament to the idea that anything can be controlled if you have enough power and enough steel. You turn away from the blue light, your shadow stretching out before you as you head toward the next station. The transition from the reactor chamber to the engine manifold is marked by a change in the tone of the ship's hum. The low electric buzz of the core is replaced by the deeper, more mechanical growl of the massive turbines that drive the ion engines. You feel the change in your chest, a weighted sensation that tells you that you are moving closer to the very back of the ship. The corridor here is narrower, the walls laden with dense heat shielding that gives the space a cramped, industrial feel. You can hear the distant, muffled roar of the engines, a sound that never truly stops, even when the ship is at rest. It is the sound of progress, the sound of an empire moving forward, 1 parsec at a time. You reach the primary manifold access hatch, the massive circular door opening with a pneumatic hiss that echoes through the narrow hallway. The atmosphere inside is thick with the scent of hot oil and scorched metal, a familiar smell that reminds you of your training days on Carida. You step inside, the door sliding shut behind you, leaving you alone with the engines and the long hours of the quiet hours ahead. The work here is more physical, requiring you to navigate a maze of pipes and valves to ensure the fuel mix is correct for the next jump. You move with a practiced ease, your body remembering the locations of every handle and every gauge without the need for thought. It is a dance of sorts, a slow, deliberate movement through the guts of the machine. As you work, you find yourself humming a low tune, a melody from your home world that feels out of place in this temple of technology. The sound is lost almost immediately, swallowed by the roar of the machinery, but it makes the space feel a little less cold. You are a single person in a ship of thousands, a small part of a much larger story that is still being written. The shift continues, the path ahead leading deeper into the complex network of the ion engine manifolds. The corridor ahead narrows, the bulkheads pressing closer as you move deeper into the heart of the manifold system. Here, the warmth of the ship is no longer a gentle suggestion, but a physical presence that clings to your skin like a damp cloth. You can feel the vibration of the 4 massive ion engines through the soles of your boots, a deep rhythmic thrumming that seems to resonate within your very bones. It is a reminder of the incredible power being harnessed just a few meters away, held back by layers of reinforced durasteel and magnetic shielding. You reach the first of the primary fuel injectors, a towering assembly of pipes and valves that stands 3 stories tall. The metal is hot to the touch, even through your thick industrial gloves, and you can see the faint shimmer of heat distortion in the atmosphere. Your task is to check the pressure readings on the manual gauges, a redundant safety measure that ensures the digital sensors are not being fooled by the intense radiation. You move slowly, your movements deliberate and steady as you navigate the narrow catwalks that crisscross the machinery. The gauge shows a reading of 42 kilograms per square centimeter, exactly where it should be for a ship at cruising speed. You mark the data on your datapad, the soft glow of the screen reflecting in the polished surface of a nearby coolant pipe. There is a certain peace to be found in these numbers, a sense of order that contrasts with the chaotic energy flowing through the ship's veins. You are the guardian of this order, the one who ensures that the flame of the Empire continues to burn bright across the stars. Moving further along the catwalk, you come across a section of piping that has been wrapped in extra layers of thermal insulation. The material is frayed at the edges, a sign of the constant stress placed upon it by the extreme temperatures of the engine bay. You make a note to request a replacement during the next maintenance cycle, though you know such requests are often buried under a mountain of imperial bureaucracy. For now it will hold a small patch of imperfection in an otherwise flawless machine. You pause for a moment, leaning against the railing to catch your breath, and wipe the sweat from your brow. The scale of the engine bay is truly immense, a cathedral of steel and fire that makes you feel incredibly small. From this vantage point, you can see the secondary thruster assemblies, their massive magnetic coils glowing with a soft violet light. It is a beautiful sight in its own way, a testament to the ingenuity and ambition of those who designed this vessel. The murmur of the turbines changes slightly, shifting to a higher pitch as the ship performs a minor course correction. You feel the slight tug of artificial gravity as the deck tilts beneath you, a sensation that would be disorienting to a novice but is second nature to you. You wait for the movement to subside, the ship finding its new heading with the grace of a predator prowling through the dark. The silence that follows is not a true silence, but a return to the baseline hum of the engines. You descend a ladder to the lower level of the manifold, where the air is thick with the scent of recycled oxygen and ozone. Here the coolant lines are more prominent, their frosted surfaces a sharp contrast to the heat of the injectors. You check the flow rate on a nearby monitor, the green light indicating that the liquid nitrogen is moving at the required velocity. Without this constant flow of frigid liquid, the engines would melt themselves into a shapeless mass of slag in a matter of minutes. A faint hissing catches your attention, a sound that is out of place among the mechanical groans of the ship. You follow the noise to a small valve on the side of a hydraulic reservoir where a tiny plume of white vapor is escaping into the room. It is a minor leak, nothing that poses an immediate threat, but it is exactly the kind of thing you are here to find. You reach for your multi-tool, the cold metal of the handle familiar and comforting in your hand. With a few careful turns, the hiss subsides, the valve seating firmly back into its housing. You watch it for a moment, ensuring that the seal holds before moving on to the next station. These small victories are the true work of the night shift, the quiet maintenance of a machine that never sleeps. You are the silent caretaker, the one who watches over the ship while the rest of the crew dreams of home and glory. The path leads you toward the ionization chambers, where the fuel is stripped of its electrons before being accelerated through the thruster bells. The light here is different, a harsh, flickering blue that casts long shadows across the deck plating. You can feel the static in the atmosphere, the hair on your arms standing on end as you approach the primary containment field. It is a place of raw power where the laws of physics are bent to the will of the Empire. You check the alignment of the magnetic mirrors, the devices that focus the ion beam into a coherent stream of energy. Even a deviation of a fraction of a millimeter could cause catastrophic damage to the engine housing. You use a handheld laser calibrator to verify the positions, the red beam cutting through the blue haze with clinical precision. Everything is within tolerance, a testament to the skill of the engineers who performed the last major overhaul. As you work, you find yourself thinking about the thousands of other engineers currently on duty across the fleet. Each of them is performing similar tasks, checking gauges, tightening valves, and monitoring the pulse of their respective ships. It is a collective effort of staggering proportions, a web of labor that spans the entire galaxy. You are a single thread in that web, but without you, the whole thing would begin to unravel. You move to the observation port that looks out into the interior of the main thruster bell. Through the thick leaded glass, you can see the incandescent glow of the ion stream, a river of blue fire that stretches out into the void. It is a sight that few people ever get to see, a glimpse into the very heart of the ship's propulsion system. The sheer brilliance of it is blinding, even with the protective filters of the port engaged. The heat here is even more intense, the shielding radiating a dull orange glow that illuminates the surrounding area. You can feel the warmth pressing against your chest, a weighted sensation that makes it difficult to breathe. You do not stay long, just long enough to verify that the erosion of the interior lining is within acceptable limits. The durasteel is pitted and scarred, but it still has many thousands of hours of life left in it. You climb back up to the main deck, the atmosphere feeling almost cool by comparison to the ionization chamber. Your legs are starting to feel the strain of the long hours on your feet, but you still have several more stations to visit before your shift is over. You take a sip of water from your canteen, the liquid cool and refreshing against your parched throat. It is a small luxury, one of the few you are allowed while on duty. The next station is the lubricant reservoir, a massive tank that holds the specialized oils needed to keep the turbines spinning. You check the level on the sight glass, the dark, viscous liquid shimmering in the half-light. It is at 85% capacity, more than enough to last until the next scheduled refueling. You add a small amount of stabilizer to the mix, a routine procedure that prevents the oil from breaking down under the extreme pressure. You find a moment to sit on a storage crate, resting your aching back against the cool metal of a bulkhead. The ship feels alive around you, a giant organism that breathes and pulses with a life of its own. You can hear the distant clang of a hammer against steel, a sign that you are not the only one awake in this industrial labyrinth. Somewhere, another worker is facing the same challenges and the same fatigue that you are. The shadows in the corners of the room seem to dance as the ship's lighting flickers momentarily. It is a common occurrence in the engineering bay, where the massive power draws of the engines can cause local fluctuations in the grid. You don't even look up, your mind already focused on the next task at hand. You are part of the machine now, your own internal cadence synchronized with the hum of the ship. You stand up and stretch, the joints in your shoulders popping with a satisfying sound. The fatigue is there, but it is a familiar companion, something to be managed rather than feared. You check your chronometer once more, noting that the midpoint of your shift has passed. The hours ahead will be slower, the work more repetitive, but no less important for the safety of the vessel. You move toward the final section of the manifold where the fuel lines connect to the primary storage tanks. This is the most sensitive part of the system, where a single leak could have devastating consequences for the entire ship. You move with even greater care here, your eyes scanning every joint and every weld for any sign of weakness. The transition into the storage bay is marked by a drop in temperature, the atmosphere becoming crisp and dry as you leave the heat of the engines behind. The chill of the fuel storage bay is a sharp departure from the warmth of the engine room, providing a sudden, crisp shock to your senses. Here the atmosphere is dry, and a thin layer of frost clings to the edges of the primary conduits, turning the dark metal into something shimmering and ethereal. You pull your collar tighter against your neck, feeling the sudden bite of the cold, and watch your breath form a faint white mist in the dim light. Every step on the metal grating rings out with a crisp, metallic snap, echoing through the cavernous space. The silence in this section is profound, broken only by the faint, high-pitched whistle of pressurized gas escaping through a relief valve. It is a lonely place, tucked away in the deep belly of the Star Destroyer, far from the bustle of the hangar bays or the barracks. You look up at the massive fuel canisters, each one a towering cylinder of reinforced durasteel that reaches toward the unseen ceiling. They hold the lifeblood of the ship, the volatile hypermatter that allows this Titan to leap across the stars in the blink of an eye. The scale of these tanks is immense, making you feel like a mere insect in the presence of such overwhelming dormant power. Your gloved hand brushes against a frozen pipe, and the ice crunches under your touch like fallen snow. You check the digital readout on the nearest terminal, the numbers glowing in a soft amber hue that cuts through the murk. The pressure is holding steady at 98% of the nominal rating, a perfect state of equilibrium for the long journey ahead. There is a specific smell here, a mixture of ozone and something chemically sweet that clings to the back of your throat. It is the scent of deep space travel, hidden away from the clean, recycled oxygen of the upper command decks. You breathe it in slowly, the cold stinging your lungs in a way that feels grounding and remarkably real. You move toward the secondary valve cluster, your boots echoing in the wide, empty space with a steady, measured pace. The lighting is dim, provided by recessed floor lamps that cast long, distorted shadows across the curved walls of the storage tanks. It feels as though the ship is dreaming, its internal systems whispering to one another in the quiet hours of the late shift. A small maintenance droid rolls past, its wheels clicking softly against the deck plates as it performs its endless circuit. It does not acknowledge you, focused entirely on its pre-programmed route through the bay, its logic circuits oblivious to the cold. You watch its red sensor light fade into the distance, leaving you alone once more with the low, steady vibration of the tanks. You reach the manual override wheel, its face coated in a fine layer of condensation that has begun to freeze. You grip the metal, feeling the resistance as you give it a quarter turn to ensure it hasn't seized in the low temperature. The mechanism moves with a satisfying muffled thud, a testament to the robust engineering of the Imperial fleet's most storied vessels. Far above the command bridge is likely a hive of activity, but down here time seems to stretch and expand. You are the silent guardian of the ship's energy, a role that requires patience and a keen ear for the smallest irregularity. It is a meditative existence defined by the steady pulse of the machines and the weight of the durasteel surrounding you. The catwalk beneath you vibrates with a new frequency as the primary turbines cycle through a routine purge. It is a delicate, shimmering sensation, like the purr of a great beast resting in a cave. You lean against the railing, looking down into the shadow where the reserve fuel lines disappear into the floor, headed for the reactors. You pull out your thermal scanner, the small screen flickering to life with a soft blue glow that illuminates your face. You sweep the beam across the joints of the main manifold, looking for any heat signatures that might indicate a microscopic leak. The display remains a steady, uniform violet, showing no signs of trouble in this frozen industrial landscape. It is easy to lose track of the outside universe in these depths, where the stars are just a concept and not a sight. There are no windows here, no views of the starfields or the planets. The ship orbits in its silent vigil. Your reality is defined by the pipes, the wires, and the constant, reassuring murmur of the systems you maintain with such care. You remember the stories told by the older technicians about the great wars of the past and the ships that came before. They spoke of vessels like this one being pushed to their absolute limits, the engineering bays filled with smoke and the scream of failing components. Today, however, there is only peace and the orderly flow of energy through the veins of the ship. The transition toward the power conversion hub is marked by a gradual rise in temperature that feels like a warm embrace. The dry cold of the storage bay gives way to a humid, electric warmth that carries the scent of hot metal. You feel the static electricity begin to tingle against your skin, a sign that you are approaching the heart of the electrical grid. The conversion coils are massive, rotating assemblies that hum with a deep, resonant bass note that you feel in your chest. They spin with a precision that is almost hypnotic, their surfaces polished to a mirror finish that reflects the flickering lights of the hub. Blue sparks dance occasionally between the contact points, illuminating the room in brief, brilliant flashes of sapphire light. You check the alignment of the primary brushes, ensuring they are making full contact with the rotating shaft to prevent arcing. The wear is minimal, well within the tolerances for this stage of the deployment, and the grease is still thick and dark. You record the reading on your data pad, the stylus scratching softly against the screen in the quiet of the room. The atmosphere here is thick with the scent of hot copper and burnt oil, a mixture that feels industrial and ancient. It is a familiar, comforting smell to an engineer, the aroma of a machine working exactly as it was designed to do. You find a small stool near the monitoring station and sit for a moment, letting the vibration of the deck soothe your tired muscles. You watch the power levels fluctuate on the main display, the green lines dancing in a complex measure of demand and supply. The ship is consuming a staggering amount of energy, even at sublight speeds, as it maintains its shields and life support. It is a constant battle to keep the distribution balanced, to ensure no single sector is overloaded by the draw. Your mind drifts to the thousands of crew members sleeping in the barracks many levels above your current position. They trust you to keep the lights on, to keep the atmosphere breathable, and to ensure the ship remains a sanctuary in the void. It is a weighted responsibility, but one you carry with a quiet pride and a steady hand as you work. You stand up and prepare to move toward the ventilation shafts, the next stop on your nightly rounds through the ship. The path ahead is narrow, a series of service tunnels that wind through the very skeleton of the Star Destroyer's massive frame. You take one last look at the glowing coils before stepping into the shadow of the access corridor, leaving the light behind. The hum of the power converters begins to fade as you descend deeper into the structural foundations of the vessel. The metal walls of the service conduit press in, offering a strange sort of comfort as you crawl further into the ship's interior. Your boots make a dull, hollow thud against the ribbed floor, a noise that carries through the ductwork like a distant pulse. The lighting is sparse here, consisting of small, recessed amber lamps that cast long, distorted shadows across the interlocking plates of durasteel. Here, the recirculated atmosphere is thinner, carrying the faint, sharp tang of ionized particles from the scrubbers. You can hear the distant, muffled roar of the main engines, a vibration that travels through the very marrow of the ship. It is a lonely place, tucked away from the gleaming corridors of the officer decks. Yet it is where the heart of the vessel truly beats. You reach the first of the primary filtration screens, a massive lattice of fine mesh that catches the microscopic debris of deep space. A thin layer of grey dust has accumulated on the wire, the remains of carbon scoring and pulverized asteroids processed by the intake. You run a gloved finger along the frame, feeling the slight resistance of the static charge that holds the particles in place. With a slow, deliberate motion, you activate the manual purge, watching as a localized burst of pressurized gas clears the screen. The dust vanishes into the reclamation vents, leaving the mesh gleaming under your handheld torch. It is a simple task, one of 1,000 small duties that keep the ship breathing, yet it feels vital in the silence of the late hour. The crawl space widens as you approach the main ventilation hub, where the primary fans spin with a low, resonant moan. These blades are 3 meters across, forged from reinforced alloys to withstand the constant friction of the moving atmosphere. They turn with a steady, unyielding pace, creating a breeze that tugs gently at your jumpsuit and cools the sweat on your brow. You pause to inspect the lubricant reservoirs for the central bearings, noting the level of the translucent amber fluid. It is thick and viscous, designed to operate at extreme temperatures without breaking down or losing its slickness. A small bubble rises to the surface, popping silently as the machinery continues its tireless rotation around the central axis. The ambient warmth of the engineering bay has been replaced by a crisp, mechanical chill that smells of ozone and sterile metal. You find the secondary manifold, a complex arrangement of pipes and valves that regulates the oxygen mix for the lower decks. Each dial is a piece of history, etched with the serial numbers of the Kuat drive yards and the marks of previous technicians. You adjust a small brass wheel, feeling the mechanical resistance as the internal plunger shifts to increase the flow of nitrogen. The hiss of gas is sharp and sudden, a white noise that fills the small chamber for a fleeting moment. It is a delicate balance, maintaining the precise chemistry required to keep thousands of souls alive in the vacuum of the void. Moving further down the line, you encounter the structural ribs of the Star Destroyer, massive beams of steel that provide the ship its rigidity. They are cold to the touch, leaching the heat from your palms as you steady yourself against their immense, unmoving weight. You can feel the subtle flex of the hull, a groan of metal as the ship adjusts to the gravitational pull of a distant star. It is easy to feel small in this place, surrounded by the sheer scale of Imperial engineering and the weight of the mission. Yet there is a peace in the isolation, a chance to exist outside the rigid hierarchy of the Navy for a few quiet hours. Here you are not just a number, but the keeper of the machine, the one who understands its moods and its requirements. You find a small observation port, a thick pane of reinforced glass that looks out into the internal void of the structural skeleton. Far below, the lights of the lower maintenance levels twinkle like distant stars, separated by miles of cabling and support struts. The scale of the interior is measureless, a labyrinth of industry that never truly sleeps, even when the rest of the galaxy is quiet. A faint whistle catches your ear, the sound of a minor pressure leak in one of the auxiliary coolant lines nearby. You follow the noise, your torch beam dancing over the insulated pipes until you find a tiny plume of white vapor escaping a joint. It is a small flaw, a reminder that even the mightiest creations of the Empire require constant, vigilant care to remain functional. You reach into your utility belt for a sealant patch, smoothing the adhesive material over the leak with firm, steady pressure. The whistling stops immediately, replaced by the familiar low-frequency hum of the circulating liquid. You hold your hand over the repair for a minute, ensuring the bond is secure and the temperature remains stable against the exterior of the pipe. The path leads you toward the moisture vaporators, where the ship reclaims water from the atmosphere to be purified and reused. The air here is humid and heavy, clinging to the walls in fine beads of condensation that catch the light like diamonds. You listen to the rhythmic drip of water into the collection trays, a liquid cadence that feels organic amidst the cold machinery. You check the salinity sensors, watching the digital readouts flicker as they analyze the purity of the reclaimed fluid. The numbers are steady, well within the safety parameters established by the naval architects who designed this sprawling fortress. It is a closed cycle, a perfect loop of consumption and renewal that sustains life in the most hostile environment imaginable. As you move, you notice a series of old markings on the bulkhead, scratched into the paint by a worker many decades ago. They are simple tallies, perhaps a count of days spent in the deep structure or a record of successful repairs completed. These ghosts of the past are everywhere, if you know where to look, silent witnesses to the generations of engineers who have walked these same paths. You reach a junction where the main powered trunk lines pass through the ventilation shafts on their way to the bridge. They are encased in thick, lead-lined shielding to prevent electromagnetic interference from disrupting the delicate life support sensors. You can feel the heat radiating from them, a dull warmth that speaks of the incredible energy flowing through the ship's veins. The silence of the crawl space is absolute, broken only by your own breathing and the distant mechanical sighs of the vessel. You take a moment to sit on a protruding strut, letting your legs dangle over the dark abyss of the lower maintenance levels. The darkness below is profound, a velvet void that seems to swallow the light of your torch before it can reach the bottom. You reflect on the complexity of the systems around you, the way millions of components must work in harmony to keep the ship afloat. It is a testament to the discipline of the Empire, a physical manifestation of order imposed upon the chaotic nature of the universe. Every bolt, every wire, and every valve has its place, and you are the one who ensures they remain there. The shift is moving into its final phase, and the fatigue is starting to pull at the corners of your vision. You stand up, stretching your cramped muscles and feeling the satisfying pop of your spine against the rigid suit. There is still more to see, more to check, but for now, the ship is stable and the atmosphere is clear. You begin the climb toward the upper access hatches, leaving the humid warmth of the vaporators behind for the dry chill of the corridors. The transition is gradual, the sounds of the fans fading as you move away from the heart of the ventilation system. Your work here is done, but the ship continues its endless journey through the night, a silent predator in the sea of stars. You reach the final ladder, the rungs cold and smooth beneath your gloved hands as you pull yourself upward toward the light. The journey through the skeleton of the ship has been a long one, but it has provided a perspective that few others ever experience. You emerge from the hatch into the secondary corridor, the bright white lights of the main decks stinging your eyes for a brief moment. The transition toward the coolant reservoirs is marked by a sudden drop in the ambient temperature. The chill here is different, sharp and clinical, biting through the layers of your standard-issue flight suit. It is the breath of the coolant reservoirs, where liquid ammonia and synthetic gases circulate in a frantic attempt to keep the main reactor from melting through the hull. You step onto the mesh walkway, the metal brittle under your boots ringing with a high crystalline note. Below you, the massive pipes of the secondary cooling loop are coated in a thick layer of rime, white and sparkling in the dim emergency lighting. The atmosphere is thin, scrubbed of moisture to prevent ice from jamming the delicate relief valves that line the ceiling. Every breath you take is a dry, biting sensation in your lungs, a reminder of the vacuum that waits just a few meters beyond the outer plating. You reach for your data pad, your fingers stiff within your gloves, the plastic casing feeling strangely fragile in the intense cold. The screen flickers to life, its blue glow casting long, distorted shadows against the frost-covered bulkheads of the exchange chamber. The readings are steady, a series of pulsing green lines that indicate the thermal transfer is proceeding within the expected parameters. It is a delicate balance, a constant negotiation between the heat of a captured star and the absolute zero of the void outside. You move toward the primary heat exchanger, a monolithic structure of durasteel and ceramic tiles that dominates the center of the room. It hums with a low-frequency resonance, a vibration that you feel in your teeth more than you hear in your ears. This machine is the heart of the ship's cooling system, a labyrinth of micro-channels where the heat of the engines is bled away into the darkness. It is an archaic design, one that has remained largely unchanged since the early days of the Quat Drive Yard's shipwrights. You notice a small patch of discoloration on one of the ceramic tiles, a faint yellow stain that suggests a minor leak in the chemical feed line. It is not an immediate threat, but in the disciplined environment of a Star Destroyer, even the smallest imperfection must be noted and addressed. You record the coordinates of the tile, the tapping of your stylus on the screen, the only noise in the oppressive stillness of the bay. The shadow below the walkway is profound, a deep well of industrial silence that seems to absorb the very light from your torch. As you walk, you pass a row of emergency cryosuits, hanging like headless ghosts in their alcoves along the starboard wall. They are thick, bulky garments designed to protect a technician in the event of a catastrophic coolant rupture, a fate that few survive despite the protection. The light from a nearby status panel reflects off the visors of the suits, creating a series of fractured, shimmering glints that dance across the floor. You turn a corner, entering the pump gallery, where the massive turbines that drive the coolant are housed in reinforced casings. The pulse of the pumps is steady, a rhythmic thud that echoes through the deck plating and up into the soles of your feet. It is the cadence of the ship's endurance, the measure of its ability to withstand the incredible stresses of hyperspace travel and prolonged combat. You check the pressure seals on the third turbine, running your hand along the seam where the metal meets the composite gasket. It is cold, so cold that it feels like it might peel the skin from your palm if you were not wearing your protective gear. The face of the gasket is holding, its exterior smooth and free of the telltale cracks that would indicate a failure in the structural integrity of the housing. You feel a sense of quiet satisfaction, a pride in the machine that is shared by every engineer who has ever served on a vessel of this class. Beyond the pumps, the gallery opens up into a wide observation deck that overlooks the main reactor core's lower shielding. From here, you can see the faint, shimmering haze of the magnetic containment fields, a translucent curtain of blue energy that keeps the sunfire at bay. The scale of the reactor is measureless, a towering pillar of light and power that stretches upward through the center of the ship like the spine of a god. It is a terrifying sight, a reminder of the immense forces that are harnessed to propel this city of steel through the cosmos. You lean against the railing, the metal leaching the warmth from your body as you stare into the glowing depths of the reactor pit. The light is constant, a steady radiance that never wavers, never flickers, a testament to the perfection of Imperial engineering. In the quiet hours of the shift, It is easy to forget the war, the politics, and the endless struggle for control of the galaxy. Here, in the belly of the beast, there is only the machine, the cold, and the relentless necessity of maintenance. You check your chronometer, noting that the midpoint of your shift has passed, the time slipping away like sand through the fingers of a spacer. The fatigue is a dull ache in your shoulders, a familiar companion that you have learned to live with over the months of your deployment. You turn away from the reactor, your boots clicking on the deck as you head toward the secondary access corridor that leads to the fuel cells. The environment shifts again, the biting chill of the coolant reservoirs giving way to a dry metallic warmth that smells of ozone and heated copper. The transition is welcome, the warmth seeping into your joints and loosening the tension that had gathered in your chest during your time in the frost. You pass a small maintenance droid, its single red eye glowing in the murk as it scuttles along a sealing track on some forgotten errand. The droid ignores you, its internal processes focused entirely on the task at hand, a reflection of the single-minded purpose that defines life aboard the ship. You reach the entrance to the fuel cell array, the massive doors sliding open with a low hydraulic hiss that echoes down the hallway. Inside, the setting is dominated by the rows of tall cylindrical cells that contain the reactant used to feed the main reactor's hunger. They are arranged in a precise grid, a forest of silver towers that glow with a faint internal light, casting a pale radiance over the entire room. You begin your inspection of the first row, checking the magnetic locks and the flow regulators that manage the distribution of the fuel. It is a slow, methodical process, one that requires your full attention to ensure that the balance of the ship's energy remains stable. The silence in the fuel cell array is profound, a stillness that is only broken by the faint electrical hum of the containment fields. You find yourself moving with a deliberate grace, your actions becoming a part of the greater pulse of the ship as you work toward the final stages of your shift. The path ahead leads toward the primary hyperdrive motivators, where the real work of the evening awaits your steady hand and focused mind. The transition into the hyperdrive motivator chamber is marked by a shift in the very fabric of the atmosphere, a change that you feel in the marrow of your bones before you even step through the threshold. The air here is thin, charged with a static tension that makes the fine hairs on your arms stand at attention, a constant reminder of the titanic energies being channeled just meters away. You pause at the entrance, letting your eyes adjust to the flickering cerulean glow that emanates from the massive power conduits, their light reflecting off the polished durasteel floor in long, distorted streaks. This is the heart of the ship's mobility, a cathedral of motion where the laws of physics are routinely bent to the will of the Empire. The scale of the motivators is difficult to comprehend, even for someone who has spent years within these walls, as they rise like frozen metal giants into the overhead shadows. You begin your walk down the primary catwalk, the metal grating beneath your boots, providing a firm industrial grip that vibrates with a deep subsonic resonance. It is a low note, a frequency so deep that it is felt in the chest more than it is heard by the ears, a persistent thrumming that speaks of unimaginable power. Your first task involves the calibration of the primary flux couplers, the delicate components that ensure the hyperdrive remains synchronized with the ship's navigational computer. You reach the first station, a recessed alcove filled with glowing monitors and physical toggle switches that have been worn smooth by the touch of 1,000 different engineers. The interface is old, a legacy of the earlier production runs from the Kuat drive yards, but it is reliable, a sturdy piece of machinery that does not suffer from the glitches of newer, more complex systems. You slide your diagnostic tool into the port, the connection making a satisfying click as the data begins to flow across the screen in a steady stream of amber text. As the numbers scroll past, you take a moment to look out over the motivator array. The sheer complexity of the machinery offering a strange kind of comfort in its orderly design. Each pipe, each wire, and each bolt has a specific purpose, a role to play in the grander design of the Star Destroyer's function. There is no room for chaos here, no space for the unpredictable, only the relentless logic of engineering and the steady pulse of the machine. You adjust a dial on the console, watching as the flux levels stabilize within the narrow parameters required for a safe jump into light speed, the green indicator light glowing with a soft, reassuring brilliance. The smell in this part of the bay is unique, a sharp, metallic scent that reminds you of a lightning storm on a distant world, mixed with the faint, sweet aroma of heated lubricant. It is a clean smell, devoid of the grease and grime of the lower decks, a reflection of the high-precision environment that the hyperdrive demands. You move to the next coupler, your movements slow and deliberate, each step a measured part of the routine that has become your life during these quiet hours. The fatigue that had begun to weigh on you earlier seems to recede, replaced by a focused clarity that only comes when the work is at its most demanding. You find a small leak in one of the secondary coolant lines, a tiny hiss of white vapor escaping from a joint that has loosened under the constant vibration of the ship. It is a minor issue, something that could easily be ignored for another shift, but you choose to fix it now, pulling a small wrench from your belt to tighten the fitting. The metal is hot to the touch, the warmth seeping through your gloves as you apply pressure, the hiss slowly fading until the silence of the chamber returns. It is a small victory, a moment of tangible progress in a shift that often feels like an endless cycle of observation and adjustment. Moving further along the catwalk, you come to the primary viewing port, a thick slab of reinforced transparasteel that looks directly into the heart of the motivator core. Inside, the plasma flows in a swirling vortex of violet and blue, a caged sun that provides the thrust necessary to move millions of tons of steel across the stars. The sight is hypnotic, the colors shifting and blending in a dance of pure energy that defies easy description. You stand there for a long minute, the glow of the plasma illuminating your face, a lone figure in the dimness of the engineering bay, lost in the beauty of the machine. There is a sense of history in this chamber, a feeling that you are walking in the footsteps of those who built this vessel and those who will maintain it long after you are gone. The Star Destroyer is more than just a ship. It is a monument to the reach of the Empire, a sprawling city of iron and fire that carries the will of the Emperor to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. You run your hand along the railing, the texture of the metal familiar and grounding, a solid anchor in a place that often feels untethered from the rest of existence. The work is hard, the hours are long, but there is a pride in it, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that you are the one who keeps the heart of the beast beating. You check the time on your wrist link, noting that you have been in the motivator chamber for over an hour, the minutes slipping away in the focused trance of your labor. The next diagnostic station is located on the lower level, requiring a descent down a narrow spiral staircase that winds around one of the massive support pillars. You take the stairs one at a time, the metal ringing softly under your weight, the sound echoing in the open space of the room. The air grows warmer as you descend, the heat from the core becoming more pronounced, a thick, enveloping warmth that feels like a physical weight against your skin. At the bottom of the stairs, you find yourself in a forest of pipes and conduits, a labyrinth of machinery that requires a keen eye and a steady hand to navigate. This is where the primary power leads connect to the hyperdrive, the thick cables pulsing with energy that causes the very air to hum with a low electrical buzz. You find the access panel you were looking for, a small door set into the side of a large junction box, and pull it open to reveal the complex circuitry within. The wires are color-coded in a system that has remained unchanged for decades, a visual language that you have learned to read as easily as your own native tongue. You begin the process of testing each circuit, using a handheld probe to check for any fluctuations in the power flow that might indicate a failing component. It is tedious work, requiring you to hold your breath at times to ensure that your hand remains steady. But it is essential for the continued safety of the ship. A single short circuit in this junction box could cascade through the entire motivator array, leading to a catastrophic failure that would leave the ship stranded in the void. You work with a quiet intensity, your focus narrowed down to the small glowing points of light on your probe, the rest of the setting fading into a blur of shadow and steel. As you finish the last circuit, a wave of exhaustion washes over you, a reminder that your shift is nearing its end and that your body is reaching its limit. You lean back against the junction box, taking a deep breath of the ionized atmosphere, the metallic taste of it sharp on your tongue. The silence of the engineering bay is not a true silence, but a complex tapestry of sounds that you have learned to interpret over the months of your service. You can hear the distant whine of a turbine, the rhythmic clicking of a relay, and the soft, persistent murmur of the ventilation system, all blending together into a symphony of industry. You gather your tools and close the access panel, the magnetic latch snapping shut with a firm, decisive sound that marks the completion of your task. The path back to the main corridor is long, a journey through the heart of the ship that will take you past the cooling towers and the secondary power generators. You begin the walk, your pace slow and steady, your mind already turning toward the end of your shift and the promise of rest. The lights in the corridor have been dimmed for the late hours, casting long shadows that dance across the walls as you pass, a silent audience to your solitary journey. You pass a group of stormtroopers on patrol, their white armor gleaming in the half-light, their footfalls synchronized in a perfect mechanical cadence. They do not acknowledge you, and you do not acknowledge them, a mutual understanding of the roles you each play in the life of the ship. They are the iron fist of the Empire, and you are the steady hand that keeps that fist moving, two parts of a greater whole that functions with a singular, unwavering purpose. The encounter is brief, a momentary intersection of two different lives, before they disappear into the shadows of the next sector. The final diagnostic station is located near the exit of the engineering bay, a small booth where you must log your findings and sign off on the work you have completed. You sit down at the console, the chair creaking under your weight, and begin to type in the data from your shift. The keys are mechanical, each press resulting in a sharp, tactile click that echoes in the quiet of the booth. You record the calibration of the flux couplers, the repair of the coolant leak, and the successful testing of the power circuits, your fingers moving with a practiced ease across the keyboard. As you finish the report, you take a moment to look back over the engineering bay, the vast space, now quiet and still in the final hours of the shift. The glowing lines of the hyperdrive motivators are still visible in the distance, a reminder of the power that you have spent the evening tending to. It is a strange, lonely life, but there is a peace in it, a sense of belonging to something much larger than yourself. You hit the submit button, the screen flickering as the data is sent to the central computer, and you stand up, your bones aching, but your mind at ease. The door to the engineering bay slides open, revealing the brightly lit corridor that leads toward the crew quarters and the mess hall. You step through, leaving the warmth and the hum of the machinery behind, the transition back to the rest of the ship feeling like a return from another world. The air here is recycled and cool, smelling of sterile plastic and floor wax, a stark contrast to the rich metallic atmosphere of the bay. You begin the long walk back to your bunk, your thoughts drifting toward the dreamless sleep that awaits you after another night spent in the service of the machine. The corridor extends before you in a seemingly infinite stretch, a pale ribbon of brushed durasteel illuminated by the soft, recessed glow panels of the ceiling. Your boots produce a dull, measured percussion against the composite floor, a solitary note that vibrates through the hollow silence of the late hour. Every few meters, the light flickers with a subtle, imperceptible frequency, a reminder of the massive power grids humming just beneath the surface of the walls. You pass the sealed hatches of the secondary battery decks, where the heavy ordnance gunners rest in their own stasis of readiness behind reinforced plating. This vessel is a city of metal, a labyrinthine construct where one could wander for many days without ever catching a glimpse of the stars outside. The architecture here is brutal and efficient, designed for a purpose that leaves little room for comfort or aesthetic flourish. Yet there is a certain stark beauty in its unwavering geometry. The elevator chime is a soft, melodic note that breaks the stillness of the hallway, announcing the arrival of the lift with a mechanical politeness. You step inside the small chamber, feeling the subtle stomach-flipping shift in gravity as the car descends toward the lower crew tiers. The interior is cramped, smelling of ozone, and the faint, lingering scent of industrial cleaning agents used during the previous watch. Within the lift, the polished metal walls reflect a tired version of yourself, a face marked by the grease and the deep fatigue of the engineering deck. You watch the floor indicators flicker in a rapid sequence, each glowing number representing a different layer of this floating fortress. It is a moment of forced stillness, a brief suspension between the world of labor and the world of rest, where the only sound is the faint whir of the cable pulleys. The doors part with a pressurized hiss to reveal the mess hall, a cavernous space that feels strangely intimate in the quiet hours after the main shift change. Only a handful of technicians remain at the long communal tables, their forms hunched over steaming mugs of dark synthetic cafe. The overhead lights have been dimmed to a warm amber, casting long, soft shadows across the floor and softening the harsh edges of the room. You move toward the automated dispensers at the far end of the hall, the machine whirring into life as it prepares a simple ration of nutrient paste and toasted wafers. There is no joy in the meal, only the necessary refueling of a body that has given its entire strength to the turning of the turbines. The tray is cold to the touch, a slab of grey plastic that has seen 1,000 meals and will see 1,000 more before the voyage ends. Finding a seat at a secluded corner table, you watch the steam rise in delicate, swirling patterns against the stark, directional lighting of the mess. The ambient warmth in this part of the ship is different from the engineering bay, lacking the sharp electric bite of the reactor core. It is a softer heat, one that carries the faint odors of recycled air and the metallic tang of the ventilation system. A mouse droid scuttles past your feet with a series of frantic, high-pitched chirps, a small mechanical reminder of the constant activity that sustains this ship. Even when the organic crew finds time to sleep, the smaller machines continue their tireless, unthinking labor in the shadows. You watch it disappear behind a bulkhead, its tiny wheels clicking against the floor plates in a frantic, hurried pace. You finish the meal slowly, savoring the forced moment of stillness before the final trek to the residential blocks. The weight of the long shift is pressing on your shoulders now, a physical presence that demands the immediate relief of a mattress and a pillow. Your fingers trace the edge of the tray, feeling the small scratches and dents that tell the story of a long life spent in service to the fleet. Leaving the mess hall behind you, enter the residential block, where the atmosphere is thick with the collective breath of many thousands of sleeping souls. The walls here are lined with acoustic padding and soft fabric, dampening the constant murmur of the ship to a faint, distant throb. It is the quietest place on the vessel, a zone of sanctuary where the demands of the Empire are momentarily held at bay by the need for rest. You reach the locker room, a functional space of grey metal and sterile light, where the day's toil is finally shed and forgotten. The latch on your assigned locker clicks open with a familiar metallic snap, revealing the few personal items you are permitted to keep in your small allotment of space. There is a photograph, a small stone from a home world you barely remember, and a spare set of clean undergarments. Removing the weighted boots and the stained jumpsuit feels like shedding a second skin, a liberation from the identity of a mere cog in the massive machine. You hang the uniform neatly on its hook, the fabric still holding the residual scent of oil and ionized copper from the engineering bay. Your body feels lighter now, the tension in your lower back beginning to ease as you stand in the cool, circulating air of the room. A quick cycle in the sonic shower strips away the remaining grime, the high-frequency vibrations tingling against your tired muscles in a strange, invisible scrub. It is a dry and efficient cleanse, leaving your skin feeling tight and strangely hollow, as if the machine has taken a part of you with it. You lean your head against the cool wall of the stall, letting the hum of the shower drown out all other thoughts. You dress in the simple, soft garments of the off-duty cycle, the fabric a welcome change from the coarse, abrasive weave of the work clothes. The transition is almost complete. The engineering bay now a distant memory of heat and noise that belongs to another version of yourself. You take a final look at the locker, ensuring everything is in its proper place, before closing the door with a soft, final click. Walking the final few meters to your bunk, you pass the open doorways of other cabins, hearing the soft, measured breathing of men you have worked beside for years. There is a quiet brotherhood in this shared exhaustion, a silent pact of service and survival that binds you all together in the dark. Each doorway is a portal to a different life, all of them currently paused in the pursuit of much-needed slumber. Your own bunk is a narrow alcove, a private sanctuary in a universe that demands total and absolute devotion to the cause. You slide into the crisp, cool sheets, the thin mattress conforming to your shape with a welcoming, yielding grace that feels like a luxury. The pillow is firm and smells of the same sterile soap as the rest of the ship, a scent that has become synonymous with the idea of home. From this position, you can feel the pulse of the main reactor through the metal frame of the bed, a gentle, reassuring thrum that never truly stops. It is the heartbeat of the Star Destroyer, the immense power that keeps the cold, lethal vacuum of space at bay for everyone on board. You find yourself matching your own breathing to that pulse, a slow and steady inhalation that fills your lungs with the recycled air. You close your eyes, letting the dimness of the cabin fold over you like a thick velvet shroud that shuts out the rest of the galaxy. The lingering images of flickering consoles and hissing steam begin to fade from your mind, replaced by the formless, shifting drift of approaching dreams. The weight of your limbs becomes a distant sensation, an anchor that tethers you to the bed while your consciousness begins to float away. The ship moves through the void, a silent and deadly predator in the deep. But here, in the quiet of the bunk, you are simply a man at rest. The Empire will continue its work without you for a few hours. The gears will keep turning, and the galaxy will spin on in its indifferent dance. You have done your part, you have kept the machine alive, and now the machine will keep you safe while you sleep. There is a profound and total peace in this surrender to the night, a final quietude that marks the end of the long and arduous evening. You let out one last slow breath, sinking into the stillness of the ship as the shift truly and finally comes to a close. The hum of the engines becomes a lullaby, a constant and unwavering song that carries you down into the deep, dark waters of a dreamless sleep. Thank you for spending this evening with me. Until next time on Canon and Calm, sleep well.